This video is going to go over how to quick battle one of the more common Harsetti defenses that has been popping up. You'll see this very frequently. It's just Harsetti with Emily FCC and ML Arunka. Here there's two that I fought. There's another one here. If I go down, this one has Ruele in place of Emily. There's one up here that has Ruele replacing FCC. And then you'll also pretty frequently see this one's got Destina replacing FCC, and we can just quick battle all of these. So first up, thanks to a Cell Shock for the DPS idea for this team. The team we will be using is, well, there's nothing here that we can hit, but the team is just this. It's Sinful Angelica, Landy, Young Senya, and Mort. Also, every once in a while, you'll see, I think I have one in my log here, a team that has Hwayoung in place of FCC or Emily, in which case we won't be using Landy because Landy is susceptible to being one-shot by her S3. We will be using Afternoon Soak Flan instead. So you just do it like this, and you would just send it into the team. So now let's get into their stats. We can start off with Young Senya and Mort, since these are pretty much staples at this point. This is the Young Senya that I use. You don't necessarily need the protection set. I'm just using this because of Harsetti S3 to block some of the damage from that at least. And then this immunity set's useless for Arena. I don't know why I have it. It's fine. This is just pretty much max out HP, give her a bit of defense. Speed doesn't really matter that much. You can put a bit more if you want to have better speed against fast Harsettis. And for artifact, you can use her personal artifact. I'm just using mine on Frida, so I'm using Touch of Rekos as a replacement. And then there is Mort. Mort, usual bruiser, HP bruiser gear. I don't have any HP boots, so mine is pretty fast. You could just swap this to HP main boots and use that instead. And then for his artifact, I'm using Adamant Shield just because I like the damage reduction. You could give him his usual Holy Sacrifice or Victorious Flag and it would be fine. And then, yeah, that's pretty much it. Now let's look at the two more important ones. First up, Sinful Angelica. Sinful Angelica, you do want her decently bulky because with different turn orders, and this is very likely, so Arunka and Emily will both target Angelica with their S3s, but it's not just if those two outspeed your entire team. If Mort goes before your Angelica goes, then Mort S3 is going to push those two up because of their passives, and then they'll cut your whole team and slam it into Angelica. And also if Landy goes, same thing. So it's very likely that your Angelica is going to have to tank both Arunka and Emily S3. So you do want to make sure that she has enough bulk to survive both of those hits no matter what. Otherwise, she's going to die immediately and you're dead. So then, I also like to have her on her personal imprint. This is just because if you're fighting a Politis team, it's a lot more risky because this does not cover that much effectiveness. Any Harsetti with more than 140 FRES has a chance to debuff you already. And depending on the tunings for your team, also just if you get crown stunned and whatnot, you can get resisted. So I keep her on her personal if I'm fighting into Politis, and then switch to the attack one if I'm not. You could also just dodge Politis and keep her on attack, same thing. For her EE, it doesn't really matter too much. I like the effectiveness one just because gives you a chance to death break on some units. You could also go for either one of these. Any of them works fine. And then for her artifact, you probably want Prophetic Candlestick. This is because this lets you permanently cycle your S3, and you'd have to get 2 procs of it in order to permanently cycle it and have your immortality never go down. Even if your immortality goes down, typically you'd have killed enough things that you're not at a threat anymore, like you're not going to die. But with the amount of CR push coming out of ML Arunka and Emily, they're going to be hitting Angelica so much that she has a very high chance to just spam proc Candlestick. And since she's the lowest HP unit, everyone else is going to be hitting her too. So even though this is RNG, it procs pretty consistently. And basically just enough bulk to not die, and then Prophetic Candlestick is what you're aiming for here. Lastly is Landy. Landy, you just want her with a ton of damage. And I actually think that I might either drop some damage or try to drop some speed. I don't have good boots without speed main stat, so I might end up dropping damage instead of dropping speed. You could craft some. The reason is just because some teams get really tanky, which you'll see later. Some teams get very tanky, and you're gonna end up tanking a second Harsetti S3 sometimes, which will make you unbuffable. You can't get stealth, so you get no damage reduction. And this team doesn't really have any healing. So I've had a run where my Landy died. I still won the fight anyways, because everything was almost dead already, so Mort just cleaned up. But my Landy died to Harsetti S3 into the S1 extra attack. That was also a very high damage Harsetti with Fairy Tail. So not surprised that Landy died there, but just that is something to watch out for. So I might bulk her up a little bit and drop some speed. But in general, it's just a ton of damage. And then for her artifact, if you have Wall of Order, you can use it. The greater attack buff is nice. The stealth helps a bit with damage reduction. Aside from that, you can use pretty much any damage boosting artifact is fine. Even Victorious Flag, if you're not using that, probably works okay. I can't use it though because my Mort already has Adamant Shield, so the damage reduction doesn't stack. It would just cancel out. So this is just Landy. It's mainly just damage with Wall of Order. Now here we are against the defense, and we can put it on auto, and then we can see what it looks like. The one thing about this defense is, of course, there's no ML Polis, which means our Senya is able to proc properly. S3 will cleanse everything for us. And it doesn't really matter who goes first. This was the tuning thing I mentioned. Here you can see Mort goes first, and he'll push Emily and ML Arunka all the way up. Emily cleanses all the fears. So that's Angelica tanking Emily S3. And now she's tanking Arunka S3. And we already got a Candlestick proc useless because we haven't S3'd yet, but as long as you're able to survive that, you're generally going to be fine. Enough buffs went up that we instantly get a full Landy S3. And that guy might have the squishiest FSC world because I don't think you're supposed to get one shot there, but with FSC dead, even if she's alive, her skill nullifier gets removed pretty fast. It's just like one extra S3 from Landy. One nice thing here is that Mort is typically going to be higher HP than pretty much every single Arunka, so his S1 is able to ignore F-Res Death Break on her, only 50%, but it's still there. And you can see Angelica's taking so many hits that we are just spam proccing Candlestick. Even with Landy getting crown stunned earlier, we're still fine on our damage. So this is one thing that might be slightly RNG, of course, whether or not you get the Candlestick procs. Even if you don't get the Candlestick procs and your Angelica would not S3 on that turn, she'd S1, or Landy would duel, typically you would have enough damage that the fight should have progressed enough that even if Angelica dies there, you're going to be fine. So now, just because when I was recording this, I hit a large streak of defenses, we can just quick out all of these, and we can see how it goes. And unfortunately, our streak of that defense ends at 5. 5 including the first one, of course. So I just end up cleaving this bottom defense with the Litica J-Kisei cleave, which you can see in the previous video, the J-Kisei cleave video. This defense also dies to it. But we can move on to the other defenses. So now let's talk about something pretty important, which was just that little thing I mentioned with Landy's bulk. once my very laggy computer finishes this quick battle, you'll see that during this fight, Landy somehow managed to die. Whenever that will happen. But here, Landy managed to die. And we still managed to win the fight anyways, but let's go into the replay and we can take a look at what happened and see what went wrong. So let's take a look and see what actually got my Landy killed. It's around here, Harsetti uses S3, and then we don't really have any good way to heal up, just with our skills still on cooldown. So we end up over here, where it's this turn, where Harsetti uses S1 into Angelica. And then her S3, or her S1 proc just vaporizes my Landy, which we still managed to win anyways, but that might be a consideration for me to bulk up my Landy a little bit. Potentially drop Torrent. I'm not sure if the damage loss would cause any issues, but because generally you're not dying in these teams, maybe it's worth for me to drop some damage for bulk on Landy. Something for me to consider in the future. We do manage to win anyways, just because they can't kill us. But keep in mind, my Mort is also already on Adamant Shield, so she already has the crit damage reduction. So, would need a bit more bulk to make up for that. Just using a damage reduction artifact wouldn't really do anything, because I already have Adamant Shield. Here's the first variation of this defense you'll see pretty often, using Ruele in place of FCC or Emily. Typically I see it in place of FCC. You just auto it, it's the same thing. So Ruele, instead of FCC, really is just... she'll stall out the fight a little bit longer typically with her heal spam. FCC has barriers and skill null. It's honestly kind of the same thing, though the difference is that usually FCC will be on Aureus, so I feel like these defenses typically don't have Aureus on them. Guardian Ice Crystals is very annoying, of course, though. Also notably, you can see just with the Harsetti RNG, this was one of their variations where Angelica does not have to tank both Emily and ML Arunka S3s before getting to use S3, but you do still want to, of course, make sure she can survive both. And this is, of course, you can see that I feel like, well, that first one I showed, the FCC kind of exploded and got one shot, but some of these defenses do get pretty bulky. I think these two examples just happen to be pretty squishy compared to the average defense. But here, this guy's dead. You can see the ignore F-res death break from Mort, and she's gone. And this defense was a nice and quick auto. So now we've got the Destina version of this team. I would say this one's honestly more annoying than the Ruele one. Destina, just more AoE healing compared to Ruele's single burst healing, makes it much more annoying to deal with, I think. Sometimes these fights stretch out pretty long, though I haven't lost yet. This one was pretty short at least. And you can just see the auto and see how it goes. Okay, well I guess in this one Harsetti instantly died, which made it a little bit faster. Definitely once you hit higher ranks, all three of these that I recorded the auto hits on were really squishy, which I did not even realize. But once you hit higher ranks, they definitely do start getting tankier. Of course, Angelica blocks the actual revive portion. That's why some of the ones that still out longer are just tankier. The Harsetti's not supposed to die there like that. That Ruele also had 19k HP, or the Destina had 19k HP. Should be a lot higher than that probably, especially on a Harsetti defense. Don't think Landy S1's supposed to do that much damage either, but either way, this defense is dead. And now, before I show the quick battle using Flan into the Hwayoung teams, let me just take a look at my Hwayoung real quick. She's just on Destro Pen, and I have her on her personal artifact because we don't really need Sustain in this team. Everyone's going to be hitting Sinful Angelica, so Sustain shouldn't really be much of an issue. And that's it for this video, just an update to quick battling these new Harsetti defenses that are really high on bulk, but not so high on damage, especially with all the damage really being single target damage and all light element. We can just tank all of it with a dark unit that's guaranteed, or generally guaranteed at least for 2 turns, with a high chance to live longer, to not die. And then, since we aren't really getting targeted, we can just run Landy full damage, though like you saw, you might want to make her a little bit bulkier. I was even considering Lifesteal set maybe, just to heal up. But either way, this auto has worked pretty well for me. I think it's been like at least 50 fights that I haven't lost yet. And hopefully this helps anybody who needed it.